everybody, it's Kateri,
And Eóin.
and welcome to Tarot Talk with the Soothsayer's Tea. Today, the card of the hour, or half hour, however long this episode is going to be the High Priestess, which is a card of intuition, mystery, higher power, and inner voice.
Secrets and
Secrets.
feminism, but not all the feminism.
Yeah.
Only a little bit of it. That's the Empress.
Yeah,
It's not a key point, but it is there. Sorry, that's what I'm trying to say.
there is definitely some interesting parallels, which that we're going to get into, especially when it comes to the feminine and the male
hmm
gaze. But history of the card, what do you know about the High Priestess? Because I don't think a lot of people know this, and it's very interesting. It's one of my favorite kind of background of the cards, is because a lot of people think it's like some sort of
It.
crazy, like goddess type character, when it not quite.
hmm Yeah, well, funny enough, I think we might have the same niche interest here because if I'm remembering correctly, before the Rider-Waite Smith deck, the High Priestess was called the Popess
Yes.
and drew a lot of symbolism to Pope Joan.
Yes. So Pope
And
Joan, nobody quite knows. Again, historians are kind of in and out on this if she actually existed or not, or if
mhm.
it was just propaganda against the Catholic Church. Um,
Yeah,
but I,
right now, in terms of the Catholic Church, it is considered apocryphal. It's not canon
yes,
from the
and
religious
again,
side of it.
exactly. It's still up in the air and it's still hotly debated today. So Pope Joan, according to myth or history, depending on the way you want to slant it, she was a basically the actual pope from 855 to 857, so 2 years. So most modern scholars are do consider it fictional, but from what was understood is that she disguised herself as a male, a clergy. She became a clergyman, and only how she got found out was that she gave birth while she was pope. And then,
Which I personally think was quite a hilarious way to be found out because I don't even think it was while she was like it was while she was pope, but wasn't it like during like a march, like an actual like popely event? It
could
wasn't
very
just
well,
like in the pope office or something.
yeah, it was something popey.
Allegedly.
Yeah, allegedly, it was very popey. At the end of the day, it was pope business. So again, according to the myth or history, depending on where you slant, she died shortly after, whether it had been they killed her or by natural causes, which is could very well because this was the Dark Ages. A lot of people are just dying for toothaches, for crying out loud. So that is where the history of the card came into, because again, in the original Tarushi cards, is that it was put there almost again a bit of a mockery of the church, because the church at the time was more of a political power than an actual spiritual leader.
hmm And yeah, I mean that's basically what it was. It was a piss take at the church. It was like, look at this. Pope Joan, the one true pope.
Yes, exactly. And it's interesting how that kind of appears, because and it kind of pulls into the meaning of the card itself. It's just that this is like a hidden mystery. This is like a conspiracy with the church, that there is a woman, somebody inflicted with vagina in power. Oh, how? Oh, no.
Oh my god. Yes.
So,
I love that interpretation so much.
and it comes into that bit of the parallel of the dangerous femme, or dangerous woman, kind of
hmm
archetype that kind of permeates the high priestess in parallel to the empress, which is like the mother archetype, where the dangerous femme is going to be something that's really comes from the the male gaze, right? Where you see men as
hmm
see women as something that's kind of like wildly and mysterious and mwahaha, and what secret powers do they have? Mwahaha. What secret wildly powers that we have? And that's where
hmm
magic in general has been very traditionally, especially the quote unquote evil magic or the mysterious
Hmm.
magic, has always been associated with women or femme presenting people.
Yeah, even in terms of like folk magic and cursing and stuff like that, it would be these sort of dangerous women. These would be like the fairies, like the banshee. Well, not the banshee, that's a bad example, but like the Lennon She, basically, where it would be like this dangerous sort of enticing woman who does have secrets and her own motive. And it was created entirely to sort of play into the male gaze and win and use it to their advantage.
Yeah, and it comes into is that the more negative concept of like male gaze, that when things happen to women is because it's their own fault. Like, what were they wearing? What were they doing? Um, there's a lot of almost dark history when it comes to the High Priestess because of just how history has kind of treated people who did not subscribe to traditional masculinity. And I don't want to just associate it with just with women or people who are assigned female at birth. Like, I just want to make sure that it's very clear that it's anybody who's
Mhm.
considered not a dude, like anybody that was in that masculine um, archetype or personality was always kind of treated with a bit of suspicion. And you see that a lot within the LGBT communities and the stuff that they had to go through, especially when it comes to the society that Western society specifically as well kind of puts on the dangerous femme archetype.
Yeah, absolutely. There's a lot of different sort of perspectives to see this from. It does have a very sort of twisted history, is I guess I would use.
Yeah.
I'm not fully sort of qualified to speak on this because I myself am not feminine. I was never a woman, um, and so I will sort of defer to you on this.
Yeah, and that's the thing. I don't want to be trust me, I'm the worst type of woman on God's green earth. So I'm not very good at it. I open my mouth too much. But this is I the High Priestess is one of my favorite cards. Honestly, I have such an attraction to the High Priestess because it does indicate again compared to the magician, and we'll kind of go into parallels with this one. So the magician who's very
Hmm.
loud, and it's very much so um, outside physical sense. The high priestess is very quiet. It's very much so an inner power. It's knowing.
Hmm. I would sort of see the two of those paired a lot and coupled the same way that the Empress and the Emperor would be coupled as two sides of the same coin. And I do sort of agree with that. I'm not going to lie, between the Empress and the Magician.
Yeah, I would think that when it comes to the emperor and the empress, where they're almost at the same um, level of power. When it comes to the
Hmm.
magician and the high priestess, they're actually almost two opposites in that regard, but in that same level of power.
Yeah,
Because when it comes
no, that's why I was like, oh, sorry. Yeah, that's why I like the two sides of the same coin situation because they are opposites, but they're also so intertwined with each other.
exactly, because the high priestess, sorry, the empress and the emperor are a little more similar because the emperor can be caring, and the empress can have authority. But when it comes to the magician and the high priestess, are kind of polar opposites, but they have this necessity of a duality that makes a person whole. And we're
Hmm.
going to discuss that a little more in future episodes about divine gender, and how I honestly, I'm going to spoil a little bit. People who are non-binary have it all figured out, honestly, because being outside gender or in like in between gender is actually the most holy place you can be. But the high priestess is really kind of pushing that secretive femme power, that quiet power, which is scary. The thing is that when it comes to the magician's not scary because he is showing you all his cards. Again, we've discussed
Hmm.
that the arrogance of the magician. Well, the high priestess is not
Yeah.
arrogant, and that's scary to people because you don't know. You just know that when you approach the high priestess, there is a terrifying power there, and you just don't can't figure it out.
Hmm. It's very much. And then, like as you were saying, that would be one of the opposites with the magician's arrogance and the high priestess's secretiveness,
Yes.
secretivity.
Yes.
There's a
Secretivity.
word. No, there's a word.
There's a word.
Secretivity.
Secretivity and biggin. We can make them up. It's okay. It's our podcast. We can do what we want.
Yeah, that's okay. Yeah, exactly. This is our English.
This is our English. And we would be
um,
remiss to kind of discuss the Empress as well, because with the difference between the High Priestess and the Empress being both feminine cards is that if anybody's familiar with the Madonna horror complex, where especially coming from male gaze, is that there are men out there that have a hard time like disconnecting sexuality from womanhood. When I say womanhood, I mean like motherhood. Basically, they can't see a woman in a position of being a caretaker and also being a sexual being, which is
mhm.
funny because
And I think I see this a lot. Sorry,
no,
continue.
please, no, continue.
I see this a lot with the high priestess and the high priestess and the empress being lumped in together like this as sort of being I see it a lot as them being the same and having the sort of same level of power and the level of um knowledge, but people treat them differently. And yet they will equate them and say that they are the same in terms of misunderstanding the associations of tarot cards, I think.
Yeah, and we don't want to get
That was a
too.
lot of work.
That was a lot of words, but we don't want to get too much
Hmm.
into the concept that these cards are gendered in this traditional sense. When I say traditional sense, I mean like in the
Hmm.
societal sense, because the high priestess does not necessarily mean it indicates a female or femme person. It just indicates somebody who has hidden power. And we can kind of discuss
Hmm.
that a little bit in our pop culture parallels, because we do have a very good example of that. That is not a female,
Yes.
but it's something, again, it lacks arrogance, because if we want to discuss in the concept of divine gender, where the masculine quote unquote magician is arrogant and annoying, the high priestess is scary and deep because it's unknowing.
Yeah. I think we could probably move into our pop culture references.
uh,
I think it might help people quite a bit because I know I'm struggling a little bit right now.
that's fair. I just don't want to go back into our parallels, because we did start a little bit of a discussion there when it comes to the conscious, subconscious, and superconscious. And
Mm,
the parallels that you're going to find when you do take a look at the cards in that row is going to be the Hermit and the Tower. So if you can kind of see some parallels, because the Hermit, again, being alone and being quiet, a lot of people don't like that. And that's what makes it scary, because you see the Tower, which is chaos, uncontrolledness, because it's unknown. There's a lot of parallels there when it comes to unknown or learning to work with chaos. So when you are doing your tarot studies, those are the three cards that you want to study when it comes to the concept of unknown: the High Priestess, the Hermit, and the Tower. And that's in the concept of consciousness, subconsciousness, and superconsciousness. But
yeah.
yes, pop culture
And
connections.
the fun stuff, as
Fun
I like to
stuff.
call
Yes.
it. Well, I am going to let you start with the first one because I have not watched Sailor Moon
And
in a very long time, and I
you
have not watched all of
you probably should, again, because it's everything that's fantastic in the world. So the
it.
High Priestess is Princess Serenity. So how Usagi, or Sailor Moon, is the fool through and through. Princess Serenity is kind of really her coming into herself, and it's that leader type of situation where she has so much hidden power, and she kind of controls and almost commands a space, and she's quiet and she's calm and she's sweet. And Princess Serenity is a really good example of the High Priestess. And it's the High Priestess, the one thing that a lot of people don't kind of click in when they appear in spreads and such, is that she's very magical. This is very much so hidden knowledge. Often, and we'll go into like our experiences with her, but Princess Serenity is one of my big connections. And you have a connection as well, and I think we have a shared connection and a very
I think we
real
do.
person.
I'm very excited for our shared
Yes.
connection. um, Well, I have always seen the High Priestess slightly unconventionally in Dumbledore from Harry Potter.
I love that.
I Yeah, I mean, look at him. He even dresses like the High Priestess. Like, there really are an endless number of connections here, but you really see this in Dumbledore. Because, first of all, I feel like the whole point of his character is he is very secretive. He deliberately tells them nothing all of the
Yes.
time, and yet he always gets what he wants.
Yes.
Um, he controls everything behind the scenes, and he doesn't wield that over people. He doesn't hold it over them. He isn't arrogant about it as the magician would be. He's very much, he knows he's in control and he's confident in that, and so he doesn't need to flaunt that power over others.
Exactly.
And so he doesn't. And that is where I see him.
And that's coming into like when it comes to the feminine power, the high priestess being scary, that's more of a misconception. It's scary because it's unknown, but once you start get to know yourself, once you start getting comfortable, then you can actually see that these individuals or this archetype is actually soft and kind, if anything.
Hmm.
It just that it just has to be navigated because it's not a very physical thing. It's very internal. It's almost like that inner. It's almost like you can't read minds. So what somebody's thinking, that is the high priestess itself, because they're only going to give you what they want to
That
share
is
with you.
such an abstract example. You have fried my little brain.
Oh, I'm so sorry. Well, that's the thing. What am I thinking of right now? Don't say burgers because then you'll be right. But what am I thinking of right now? You don't know.
The High Priestess, I
I
hope.
hope so. But when you're looking at somebody and you don't quite know what they're thinking, that's basically the high priestess like kind of developing itself. And I think
They are the High Priestess in that moment as well. When you don't know what someone's thinking and you want, they have a power over you, especially if it's something that you want to know.
yes, and that comes into our kind of shared pop culture connection, which is Lady Gaga.
Oh, yeah,
And I and
absolutely.
that's kind of segue into what I just said. Does anybody know what the hell she's thinking when she pulls up the things that she does? No. Do we love it? Yes.
Absolutely, every second of it. It is amazing. And it is such a good comparison to the High Priestess in real life because we can connect to these people. We can see these people and we don't know anything about her. Like we do. But, do we?
What we do.
Do we actually
No,
know Lady
she's
Gaga?
well, again, it's very she always shares what she wants to share. And everything that she kind of does has some sort of second meaning. It might be weird as all hell, but it's a second meaning. Like the last music video that she came out with is 911. If you go through it, you realize that it's an entire parallel to a car accident. And you don't realize until the end when
Mhm.
she very explicitly tells you. But until then, she's still telling you, but it's just still unknown and you're there to figure it out. And if anything, it kind of emotionally pulls you in. And her kind of entire like career has been kind of like that. It's been kind of vague and very artsy. This is a very artsy card.
Mhm. I think, speaking of car accidents, it's very funny that you brought that up because that did just spark a little memory for me. Anyone who grew up in the UK or Ireland might have seen the RSA ads for road safety when you were younger, that I'm now pretty sure are no longer allowed on television. Because this advertisement also quite embodies the High Priestess. It's very normal at the beginning. You might see children playing in a playground, you might see a family in their back garden, and then it will suddenly like switch points of view to a man driving his car, and it will keep swapping back and forth, and it will go very slowly, and you have no idea what's about to happen, but you're enthralled in what is happening even though you've got no idea what's going on. And then, in the reason why it was probably taken off television, the man in the car will like basically plow over the entire family by
Oh
like going through their back garden
God.
bush. And the advertisement is basically, don't drink and drive.
But until then, you're enthralled, right? Um,
Yeah, but until then, you're losing your mind. You have no idea what's happening. The suspense is building. And I, this is a very interesting part of my childhood, if you can't tell. This has stuck with me.
it's just kind of stuck with you forever. I mean, I think the High Priestess is kind of like every art house film ever. Every
Yeah,
art house film ever. Like if you've ever watched The Lighthouse with William Dafoe and Robert Patterson, it is a mess
William
of
Dafoe.
Yes. So, oh my gosh, watch the movie. It is messed up and nothing makes sense. And but the thing is that before you know it, you're googling things. You're trying to figure it out, and you're like, "Oh, this is a reference to this.
Mhm.
Oh, this is a reference to that. This is a reference to this." And you're like, "There's so much meaning here." And that's where the High Priestess kind of
What
kicks out.
what is that one TV show where they like have to find love or something by a certain age or they get turned into animals? Because
Uh,
that is also the High Priestess. And I know you might not see the show, and if I could name the show, um you would agree because you would then watch it. But I promise, if anyone knows the show I'm talking about, that show is also the High Priestess.
just pop a tweet
It
out
might
once
be a
you haven't got
movie.
it figured out.
I will. I'll figure it out. I will let you know. I'll figure it out.
So let's go into our experiences with the card. How does it manifest for us when we're doing readings for ourselves and other people?
Well, for me, when I pull the High Priestess, it's sort of a confidence boost for me, I guess. I'm sort of seeing what I could be and and also sometimes telling me to shut my mouth a little bit. That happens quite a bit. When the High Priestess comes up for me, it's because I'm getting too involved in things that I shouldn't be involved in, like other people's business, or I'm giving opinions that were not needed, stuff like that. And I need to sort of keep that to myself if I want to have any kind of upper hand in air quotes. Um, did that make sense? And then
It,
in the other way around, I don't actually know. I don't really pull the High Priestess that often now that I think about it. I really like the card though. Hold on, let me think for a minute. It's going to depend on the cards around it. It always does with
it
the High
does.
Priestess because if it comes up with the like the Ace of Cups, then I'm a little bit less worried. I'm seeing it a little bit more as like maybe empowerment or maybe stepping into your own in some sort of way. But if it comes up with, for example, the Seven of Swords, then I'm like, okay, so you might be lying to the people around you about a lot, and that's not good. You need to stop that.
Yeah, and we kind of discussed that in our starting your practice episode, one of our future episodes. It's just that a lot of the majors is really going to be dictated by the minors after it. And that's
Hmm.
why when I'm going to discuss it here right now, I don't necessarily like just reading with majors because those are subject cards. Those are going to be cards that are going to be very, very clearly almost your 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 noun. That's going to be the subject at hand. So the only way that I would recommend people kind of wanting to gain clarification on something is to pull an extra card to be able to get a minor, so you can find the action behind it. So
Hmm.
for me, when it comes to the High Priestess, it almost always says go within. Instead of necessarily looking for external factors, find the internal factors. Why things are happening, or why are you thinking this way. It's telling me to
Hmm.
trust my gut. Now, there is a bit of a parallel when the moon comes to intuition. I don't read the moon as intuition. I read that more of lunacy. I read the High Priestess as intuition. It's either going to be intuition, or it's going to be there's something hidden from you. There's knowledge that you need to know that you have to seek. That is important. That is pertinent to this situation that you're reading for. So that's what I have to, again, trust my gut. Does it mean that I need to really keep pushing on trusting my gut? Or do I have to push further and find out what's going on here? Usually it's information. I don't necessarily see it as a negative card, but I see it when that comes up that there's stuff being hidden from me. And it doesn't necessarily have to be like a negative thing, because often when this card comes up, I see a lot of people read it negatively, like it's either gossip or slander, or people are intentionally hiding something from you. It doesn't necessarily mean that way. It just could be that your head's so far up your own arse that you can't reflect to be able to find out what the real truth is.
Yeah, I think this is sort of the first like tarot talk card that we've had sort of more differing opinions on. Usually we're pretty much in like almost up there agreement. I think I read the High Priestess as a little bit more externally than you do, or more so I use the High Priestess to sort of diagnose external symptoms before I dive within, if that makes sense.
Yeah, and that comes into the beauty of reading, honestly. As long as you're not
Yeah,
going like
look at
completely
that.
crazy on your interpretation.
Actually, the High Priestess tells me that your mother doesn't love you and that you will never, ever find a
Yeah,
boyfriend.
it
Ever.
tells you that if you like keep eating dairy, that means your face is breaking out. That's what it's telling you
Yeah.
because there's like hidden bacteria on your face.
Exactly. And it's from the dairy.
It's
You can
from the
tell
dairy.
because.
High priestess dairy is bad for you. No, joking aside. For me, it's very much so. It's an internal card. Because I very much so,
Mhm,
and again, I think that comes into my personal practice and the deities that I work with, which are very chthonic. They're very like kind of deep and hidden, is that I see that
mhm,
as a very internal thing. Well, I find the, again, parallel to the magician. And the reason why we make these parallels because these cards are beside each other within the fool's journey, so they do kind of connect. So in parallels to the magician, that's very external, that's very action oriented. The high priestess is very it's very internal. It's very almost slow down, stop, think. It's mindfulness. And it's mindfulness
mhm,
not in a way that the hermit is, because the hermit is very much so it's a retreating into yourself and shutting yourself off from everything external, where the high priestess is that consider all your external factors and look deeper, reflect on those.
mhm. Yeah, absolutely. I almost agree with you there.
You know what? If you don't agree with me, then we're done. We're fighting. No, honestly, I do.
No.
There's no right or wrong way. Well, there is. Never mind. There's a complete wrong way to write tarot, but there's no for this and from
Within reason, there's no wrong way to interpret tarot cards.
within reason. Absolutely, there's no like. We just have a different way of approaching it. But I think that the way
Yeah.
that you are approaching it, it's not wrong. Honestly, it's completely valid. It's just not how I like to approach it, just because um,
Mhm.
it's just how it anchors in
You're
me.
edgy and deep.
I'm edgy
I
and
mean,
deep.
yeah.
Well, that and it
Yeah.
just anchors differently in me. Like how these
Yeah.
cards
No, I understand.
should anchor differently in everybody when you're doing the walking the cards and
Hmm.
doing as you do.
Yeah. I think this has been a great lesson for people who are reading, who are listening. We are reading.
We're doing something.
Because, look, we're disagreeing, but we're not actually disagreeing because the other person's opinion is valid. And that's tarot,
Yeah.
but not always.
Unless you're like taking like again the high priestess out of the deck because it's just weird and you just don't understand it and it's gross, then we're fighting.
That's a little annoying, I'm not gonna lie.
A little annoying. I want like I can instantly feel my hair turning gray and falling out of the root right now just thinking about it.
We are once
I'm
again,
bald.
we cannot talk
I am
about
bald.
this 3 episodes in a row.
Are you sure?
We
Because I
cannot
can.
talk about spirit. Listen, I'm not saying we can't, I'm saying we shouldn't. It's probably for the best if we leave the spiritual bypassing for the actual episode that we have it planned for.
Oh yes. Oh yes, maybe
The
that's a
plan,
good idea.
remember? We have a plan. We definitely
Do
we're
we?
planned ahead. We're doing great. We're doing great,
No,
okay? Um
no, we're not.
so
Alrighty, I think that's it. I think we talked the high priestess out the door.
yeah, I think so too. Well, good luck, everyone. My name is Owen on. You can find me on Instagram at Owen on, on Twitter at Owen on, and you can buy readings from me and check out my website where I occasionally will post some blog posts, shop@kylock.com. You won't be able to spell anything I just said, I'm presuming including my first name, and that is why the links will also be in the description below.
Yes, and my name's Kateri. You can find readings from me, whether they be written PDF readings or scheduled Zoom readings if you want to speak with me directly. And that's going to be at
Why
Vinox.
you'd want to do that, I
I have
cannot
no
tell.
idea, but it's vinoxus.net. Alternatively, you can also find me on Instagram and regretfully Facebook, and also on Vivo and maybe TikTok. I don't know. I haven't figured it out yet. I'm thinking about
I'm
it.
on Vivo on TikTok. I forgot about
Yeah,
that.
I forgot about those. TikTok, I don't know. TikTok scares me, but I'm thinking about it because I do daily. Again, I do daily polls on
TikTok, my account is private
Instagram.
on
So
because same.
yeah,
Well,
so
yeah.
we'll
Oh,
think
we
about
also
it.
have Instagrams and Twitters for this podcast.
Yes, we do. So I take care of the Instagram, which is the soothsayers underscore T.
And I run the Twitter, which is the same username, soothsayers underscore T.
Yes, and you will find updates from us there for each episode, which we have two per week. One on Monday, which we discuss each tarot card in depth, and then on Fridays, which is our feature episode, which we are going to, you know what, discuss whatever we feel like it in pertaining to the spirit of the card.
Yeah, perfect. We'll
Fan.
see you all on Friday.
See you on Friday. Bye.
Bye.